do the work of this joint committee. Let's hear about this project. Gene?
Sure. The executive recommended this project to amend it. It's a minor funding switch.
7 hours today already. I can imagine you might be a little fatigued.
I'm
No
happy
worries.
to defer.
So yes, the executive has recommended this in the fiscal 20 budget for amendment. He's recommending that there be a funding switch for roughly $4 million in permitting services current revenue to long-term financing in fiscal 19. As the PHED committee discussed with permitting services, their revenue or fund balance is low. They're also considering increasing their fees for fiscal 20, and the PHED committee has recommended their budget for approval, and this would kind of continue that. There's already almost $43 million slated for long-term financing for this project, so it's de minimis in terms of that getting added. There's also a minor GO bond switch with long-term financing in the out years. But as I stated earlier, the project is on schedule. It's still anticipated to be delivered and occupied sometime summer next year. We have DOT here. If the committees have any questions, staff recommends approval of this amendment.
Okay, once again, slowly. Hey, Keith, how you doing, man? So you need to shift some of the financing from the DPS reserve fund, essentially, their enterprise fund, to long-term financing. Is that it?
Correct.
And long-term financing is not GO bonds. It's a different type of financing.
Correct.
Yes, Mary Beth OMB, and basically, what you'll notice on this PDF is there is the long-term financing, and that is really for the non-tax supported agencies that need to finance the costs that can't afford to pay for it out of fund balance. So it does not impact the GO bonds.
And does it impact park and planning?
No, they're being funded through the GO bonds, their space.
But I understand is this capital expense or is this operating?
This is only capital.
So capital.
Yeah.
Okay. And DPS has provided a fair amount of support for this project from their budget.
Correct. The expenditure schedule says they've already provided close to $21 million.
And where are we here? What's next in our journey towards opening? What dates are we looking at?
So on page 2, DOT provided some high-level dates. They expect the concrete building and frame to be completed July 2019. They'll do the building drying and building skin later this year and this fall, and then May 2020 is when substantial completion, including interior work and tenant build-out, will be completed. Occupancy hopefully in summer 2020.
Okay. Questions from my colleagues? Mr. Friedson, Ms. Navarro, Chair, Co-Chair.
Thank you very much. There are no recommended changes to the expenditure schedule. This will not affect the potential approximate schedule of completion that has just been mentioned, correct? Correct.
Correct.
Correct. Yes? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you very much. That's pretty much my question. Thank you.
On time and on budget? Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right.
It's actually a project this size, with this magnitude. I couldn't be happier to sit in front of you and say this project remain on track, both from financial standpoint, from the schedule standpoint, and actually the project, I mean, I don't know if you have driven by, they're now on the 10th floor.
Often.
Often, I'm sure. And we're going to have a celebration on the 26th for the top out, whenever the contractor finish concrete pouring. They actually invite all the workers, and it's an event that they customary to it. So, and we are on track, we are on target. Everything is going very well, and we were recently did a change, kind of a change order for our system furniture, so that's already in the contract. So moving will be July of 2020.
All right. I've got Andrew Friedson, Sidney Katz.
So I have no problem with this, and appreciate the fact that it is on time, on budget. That is good news. I think Mr. Reamer was kind of hinting at this, but I did have just a quick question. I know operating budget side related to this project, Park and Planning was concerned, and we are going to be taking a look at ensuring that they have move-in funds available, since obviously there are moving costs associated with this move. I was wondering the other agencies that are in, and this might be a question for Ms. Norton, but the other agencies that are expecting to move, do they have moving expenses budgeted to be able to move?
That because when we went for the budgeting this project, we included dollars for moving, and it's already in the project.
In your budget?
CIP, yes, as part of the project. And,
So-
and
So you're covering all the costs
For
for the agencies, including Park and Planning and all of the
yes,
other
all the
agencies?
agencies for the moving whatever furniture they want to take with them. Because in some cases, they're leaving behind all the junk, I guess, and they will move there. If there are any server or specialty equipment, electronics like that, we take the desktop, the telephone equipment, and my understanding is DTS is going to provide new phones. However, if they have a server and that sort of specialty, which is their program, that is not in my project. In our funds is for the actual moving expense.
And have you communicated with all the departments about
Actually,
what
I-
you're covering, what they're expected to
Yeah.
cover as part of the budget process, including Park and Planning?
Yeah, actually, I scheduled a meeting with all the park and planning and agencies involved, in DGS as well for the county government, because the county government agencies will be a tenant of park and planning. The reason you don't see any operating costs in this because that's going to be FY21. So if they are start moving in July of 20, so that puts them into FY21. So Park and Planning will work with OMB and DGS as well, and they're going to come up with the operating cost estimates and so forth.
That seems significantly different from what we have heard consistently from Park and Planning, and I'm sure my colleagues have also had several of these conversations, so I think it would be helpful if you could share with us what
What's
costs are included on your end as part of the CIP, broken out by line item and by different agency, including Park and Planning, and make sure you have that conversation with them, and then we can
Absolutely.
follow up, because this is obviously a very timely conversation that we're going to be
Right.
having almost, as we speak, to figure out how we
Well,
solve this.
They have a detailed breakdown of the PDF, and the PDF specifically identify what costs are included. For example, in terms of the furniture, there are two parts: system furniture, which is going to be built into the floor, and then the loose furniture. There are some loose furniture that we are providing, I think conference tables and things like that. There might be some specialty furniture that is outside our scope. We just assume basic furniture for the offices. For example, the kitchen area will have the cabinets and fridge and whatever else that they have to have connected to the building. In terms of moving, again, in terms of the electronic, the cabling, the telephone, and the fiber optics, everything is covered under our project. And security system is under our project. However, if they want to have security officer and that sort of things, those are program related, is not in the project.
Okay, I think there's a difference between a build-out and moving costs, and so I think we just need to, maybe Ms. Norton has some thoughts here, because I think we're talking about two different things. I mean, we're talking about infrastructure and cabinets, and when you move into a building, you still have moving costs, even though all of those things are there, so it'd be helpful if you could share with us what your thoughts are.
Office of Management and Budget. So the moving cost of the tables and chairs and everything is covered in the CIP. The operating budget impacts that we'll be discussing tomorrow are detailed in, I think, the packet materials that we'll look at during tomorrow's session. But those include things like the specialty move costs that were referred to in terms of specific IT equipment that Park and Planning is asking for specific funding for to move, that is above and beyond the general movement costs that are covered in the CIP project.
That's for tomorrow's session?
So,
Fed committee.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate it. I think we need to have some significant follow-up conversations tomorrow with Park Park and Planning, because there is definitely not communication between the agencies of understanding exactly what's covered and what is not covered, because that hasn't been what we've consistently heard from different
Maybe
folks.
the reason they haven't communicated with us because they know exactly what the project covers, and we basically implementing the project in terms of construction and delivery of the project, and then we will be out of the picture.
That would be terrific. I hope that that is the case. So we will find out as we continue to have these conversations, but I appreciate that.
I think the general point is Park and Planning is saying they had some expenses that aren't covered. And if the budget that they've got recommended from the executive goes through, they're short money that they need for the move-in. I don't think anyone's saying that that's necessarily your doing or it should have been in this project. I'm not saying that, we don't know that, but we do know that they have some needs that they've identified that aren't yet funded. So that's the issue we're going to have to grapple with.
Less with the CIP, I think it was an operating
Yeah.
budget question, and the question is, what does the CIP cost as a capital expense, and what is an operating need, and it doesn't seem like everybody's on the same page, so
Right.
hopefully we can.
But that's why it wasn't in this packet, is because
It's
presumably it's an
fact.
operating thing and it's gonna be
If
dealt
we
with
did-
tomorrow, so I'm not really sure why we're.
Fully aware of those other items that is not covered under the CIP, because
Right.
we basically deliver the building
Yeah.
and basic moving.
Okay,
We'll take it from here
Tomorrow,
tomorrow.
yeah.
Good.
I was just going to say, OMB did share that there's $500,000 in the CIP for moving cost. So that there is a number that they have set aside, just as Mr. Rashi has said. Yep.
Mr. Kennis.
Thank you very much. Just so I understand, the building is going to be owned by Maryland National Capital Park and Planning. Is the land owned by them as well?
No, actually, there's no more any land. I mean, there is a building.
Well, it's not going to be floating, so it's
Yeah.
owned something.
So they will own the building, not the infrastructure underneath. The garage will remain as a property of PLD. We did transfer, or we will transfer the area around the building to Park and Planning. So they were very insistent that they wanted to own that part as well. And across the street where the Regional Service Center was, is going to become the town square, and that will remain as the county government property. So they will own the whole building. PLD will own the garage under a condominium regime, and then the remaining property on the back where was supposed to be a residential, that will remain as a PLD property for other uses.
And the current building is owned by Maryland National Capital Park and Planning, right?
The current building in.
On George Avenue.
Yes.
And they are selling that, or have sold that.
Yes, on this, we will do a settlement. They will transfer the title to the county, and then immediately it will be transferred to the developer, and then we will give them the title to the building at that settlement.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Joanna.
Can I just clarify one thing? The sale of the property is helping to fund this project.
I realize that part, but it's a little confusing as who owns what for the moment, yeah. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I look forward to digging into the Fed thing tomorrow, but not to beat the dead horse here, but things like Wi-Fi and AC power and all that, are those things? Okay, so if those things were specifically mentioned to me as things that funding was needed for. So maybe I'm just not understanding. So we'll dig into that tomorrow.
There's been ongoing discussions between the executive branch and Park and Planning, so we'll follow up on all of those items.
Okay, because that's, because if I see $1 million that's needed for moving, and then we have 500,000 here, and I'm being told they're for the same things, that obviously.
The $1 million that's being requested by Park and Planning for restoration in their budget is a combination of move costs that are separate from the capital budget,
yeah.
as well as operating costs for the
Okay,
building.
so I just need to be clear to Mr. Friedson's point on.
Hey, good afternoon.
Yeah.
My name is Keith Compton. I'm with the firm O'Connell & Lawrence, a local small business in Olney. We are assisting DOT in the management of the project. to the point about the Wi-Fi. The building will have two separate security systems in the building. Park and Planning has its own security system now that they want to continue with. Montgomery County government has its own security system. The two systems are not compatible. As it relates to Wi-Fi, the county government has a Wi-Fi system. Park and Planning will have a separate, different, and apart Wi-Fi system. Because of the differences in the two security systems, the Wi-Fi systems can't join. That's the reason I believe that Park and Planning may be coming with a request for funding for a second Wi-Fi system.
Totally reasonable. I just want to make sure we're going in with eyes wide open. And I'll start with that and end with, I'm very excited. I drive by it almost every day and can't wait. My kids are monitoring the progress of the building. So excited it's on track and look forward to celebrating with you next summer. So.
All right, so staff recommends approval. No objection? Fine.
Thank you.